ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaste, dear friends. Today I'm giving you second video on the talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. I start with the question devotee. Does Maharshi enter the Nirvikalpa Samadhi? Maharshi replies, if the eyes are closed, it is Nirvikalpa. If open, it is, though differentiated, still in absolute repose, Savikalpa. The ever present state is the natural state Sahaja. 26th January 1935, talk number 18. Mr. Evans Vance asked, there are yogis with occult powers. What does Maharshi think of them? Maharshi, the powers are known by hearsay or by exhibition. Thus they are in the realm of the mind only. Devotee Mr. Brunton mentions a yogi in Madras who is said to hold communion with his master in the Himalayas. Maharshi. It is not more marvelous than telepathy, so commonly known. Telepathy cannot exist without the hearer and television without the seer. What the difference between hearing from far and from near? It is only the hearer who matters. Without the hearer, there cannot be hearing. Without the seer, there cannot be vision. Devotee. So you want me to consider the subject and not the object. Maharshi, the subject and the object appear only after the mind has arisen. The mind comprises them and also the occult powers. Devotee. Can the manifestation of light, Jyotis, be seen on Arunachala hill? Maharshi, yes. Devotee, is there any psychic effect in visiting sacred places like Mount Kailas, Banaras, etc.? Maharshi, yes. Devotee, is there any benefit accruing by dying in Banaras? Maharshi, yes. The meaning will be clear if the real Banaras and real dying be understood. Devotee, you mean that they are in the self? Maharshi, yes. Devotee, there are six centers in the body and there are corresponding centers in the world. Maharshi, yes. What is in the world is in the body and what is in the body is in the world also. Devotee, is the sacredness of Banaras a matter of faith or is it externally also real? Maharshi, both. Devotee, some people are attracted to one place of pilgrimage and others to another. Is it according to their temperaments? Maharshi, yes. Just consider how all of you born in different places and living in other lands are gathered here today. What is the force which has attracted you here? If this is understood, the other force is also understood. 29th January 1935, Talk 19. Mr. Grant Duff asked, where are memory and forgetfulness located? Maharshi, in the mind, Chitta. 30th January 1935, Talk number 20. Mr. Evans, when is solitude necessary for a jnani? Maharshi, solitude is in the mind of man. One might be in the thick of the world and maintain serenity of mind. Such a one is in solitude. Another may stay in a forest but still be unable to control his mind. He cannot be said to be in solitude. Solitude is a function of mind. A man attached to desire cannot get solitude wherever he may be. A detached man is always in solitude. Devotee. So then one might be engaged in work and be free from desire and keep up solitude. Is it so? Maharshi, yes. Work performed with attachment is a cycle, whereas work performed with detachment does not affect the doer. He is even while working in solitude. Devotee. They say that there are many saints in Tibet who remain in solitude and are still very helpful to the world. How can it be? Maharshi, it can be so. Realization of the self is the greatest help that can be rendered to humanity. Therefore, the saints are said to be helpful, though they remain in forest. But it should not be forgotten that solitude is not in forest only, it can be had even in towns in the thick of worldly occupations. Devotee, it is not necessary that the saints should mix with people and be helpful to them. Maharshi, the self alone is the reality, the world and the rest of it are not. The realized being does not see the world as different from himself. Devotee, thus then the saint's realization leads to the uplift of humanity without the latter being aware of it. Is it so? Maharshi, yes, the help is imperceptible but is still there. A saint helps the whole of humanity unknown to the latter. Devotee, would it not be better if he mixed with others? Maharshi, there are no others to mix with. The self is the one and the only reality. Devotee, if there be 100 self-realized men, will it not be to the greater benefit of the world? Maharshi, when you say self, you refer to the unlimited, but when you add man to it, you limit the meaning. There is only one infinite self. Devotee, yes, yes, I see. Sri Krishna has said in the Gita that work must be performed without attachment, and such work is better than idleness. Is it karma yoga? Maharshi, what is said is given out to suit the temperament of the hearers. Devotee, in Europe it is not understood by the people that a man in solitude can be helpful. They imagine that man working in the world can all alone be useful. When will this confusion cease? Will the European mind continue wading into the morass or will it realize the truth? Maharshi, never mind Europe or America. Where are they except in your mind? Realize yourself and then all is realized. If you dream and see several men and then wake up and recall your dream, do you try to ascertain if the persons of your dream creation are also awake? Devotee, what does Maharshi think of the theory of universal illusion Maya? Maharshi, what is Maya? It is only reality. Devotee, is not Maya illusion? Maharshi, Maya is used to signify the manifestation of the reality. Thus, Maya is only reality. Devotee, some say that Sri Shankaracharya was only intellectual and not realized. Is it so? Maharshi, why worry about Shankaracharya? Realize your own self. Others can take care of themselves. Devotee, Jesus Christ cured people of their diseases. Is that only an occult power siddhi? Maharshi, was Jesus aware at the time that he was curing men of their diseases? He could not have been conscious of his powers. There is a story related as follows. Jesus had once cured a man of his blindness. The man turned wicked. In course of time, meeting him after some years, Jesus observed his wickedness and asked him why he was so. He replied saying that when he was blind, he could not commit any sin. But after Jesus had cured him of blindness, he grew wicked and Jesus was responsible for his wickedness. Devotee, was not Jesus a perfected being possessing occult powers siddhis? Mercy, he could not have been aware of his powers siddhis. Devotee, is it not good to acquire them such as telepathy, etc.? Mercy, telepathy or radio enables one to see and hear from afar. They are all the same, hearing and seeing. Whether one hears from near or far does not make any difference in hearing. The fundamental factor is the hearer, the subject. Without the hearer or the seer, there can be no hearing or seeing. The latter are the functions of the mind. The occult powers, siddhis, are therefore only in the mind. They are not natural to the self. That which is not natural but acquired cannot be permanent and is not worth striving for. They denote extended powers. A man is possessed of limited powers and is miserable. He wants to expand his powers so that he may be happy. But consider if it will be so. If with limited perceptions one is miserable, with extended perceptions the misery must increase proportionately. Occult powers will not bring happiness to anyone, but will make him all the more miserable. Moreover, what are these powers for? The would-be occultist, Siddha, desires to display the Siddhis so that others may appreciate him. He seeks appreciation, and if it is not forthcoming, he will not be happy. There must be others to appreciate him. He may even find another possessor of higher powers that will cause jealousy and breed unhappiness. The higher occultist, Siddha, may meet a still higher Siddha, and so on until there will come one who will blow up everything in a trice. Such is the highest adept, Siddha, and he is God or the Self. Which is the real power? Is it to increase prosperity or bring about peace? That which results in peace is the highest perfection, Siddhi, devotee. But common people in Europe and America would not appreciate such an attitude and would desire a display of powers and instructions by lectures, etc. Maharshi, lectures may entertain individual for a few hours without improving them. Silence, on the other hand, is permanent and benefits the whole humanity. Devotee, but silence is not understood. Maharshi, it does not matter. By silence, eloquence is meant. Oral lectures are not so eloquent as silence. Silence is unceasing eloquence. The primal master, Dakshinamurti, is the ideal. He taught his rishi disciples by silence. Devotee, but then there were disciples for him. It was all right. Now it is different. They must be sought after and helped. Maharshi, that is a sign of ignorance. The power which created you has created the world. If it can take care of you, it can similarly take care of the world also. Devotee, what does Bhagwan think of the lost soul mentioned by Jesus Christ? Maharshi, think what there is to be lost. Is there anything to lose? What matters is only that which is natural. Such must be eternal and cannot be experienced. That which is born must die. That which is acquired must be lost. Were you born? You are ever existent. The self can never be lost. Devotee, Buddha advises the eightfold path as being the best so that none might be lost. Maharshi, yes, such is called Raj Yoga by the Hindus. Devotee, is yoga advised for a spiritual aspirant? Maharshi, yoga helps control of mind. Devotee, but does it not lead to occult powers, siddhis, which are said to be dangerous? Maharshi, but you qualified your question by the words a spiritual aspirant. You did not mean a seeker of power, siddhis. 31st January 1935, talk number 21. Mr. Ellappa Chettiar, a member of the Legislative Council of Madras Presidency and an influential Hindu, asked, why is it said that the knowledge born of hearing is not firm, whereas that born of contemplation is firm? Mercy. On the other hand, it is said that hearsay knowledge, proksha, is not firm, whereas that born of one's own realization aproxa is firm. It is also said that hearing helps the intellectual understanding of the truth, that meditation makes the understanding clear, and finally that contemplation brings about realization of the truth. Furthermore, they say also that all such knowledge is not firm and that it is firm only when it is as clear and intimate as a gooseberry in the hollow of one's palm. There are those who affirm that hearing alone will suffice, because a competent person who had already, perhaps in previous incarnations, qualified himself realizes and abides in peace as soon as he hears the truth told him only once, whereas the person not so qualified must pass through the stages prescribed above before falling into samadhi. Talk number 22. Mrs. Pigot returned from Madras for a further visit. She asked questions relating to diet regulation. Devotee. What diet is prescribed for a sadhak, one who is engaged in spiritual practices? Maharshi. Sattvic food in limited quantities. Devotee. What is sattvic food? Maharshi. Bread, fruits, vegetables, milk, etc. Devotee. Some people take fish in North India. May it be done? No answer was made by the Maharshi. Devotee. We Europeans are accustomed to a particular diet. Change of diet affects health and weakens the mind. Is it not necessary to keep up physical health? Maharshi. Quite necessary. The weaker the body, the stronger the mind grows. Devotee, in the absence of our usual diet, our health suffers and the mind loses strength. Maharshi, what do you mean by strength of mind? Devotee, the power to eliminate worldly attachment. Maharshi, the quality of food influences the mind. The mind feeds on the food consumed. Devotee, really, how can the Europeans adjust themselves to sattvic food only? Mercy, pointing to Mr. Evans Vance, you have been taking our food. Do you feel uncomfortable on that account? Mr. Evans Vance, no, because I am accustomed to it. Devotee, what about those not so accustomed? Maharshi, habit is only adjustment to the environment. It is the mind that matters. The fact is that the mind has been trained to think certain foods tasty and good. The food material is to be had both in vegetarian and non-vegetarian diet equally well, but the mind desires such food as it is accustomed to and consider tasty. Devotee, are there restrictions for the realized man in a similar manner? Maharshi, no, he is steady and not influenced by the food he takes. 2nd February 1935, talk number 23. Mr. Evans Vance continued another day. May one have more than one spiritual master? Maharshi, who is a master? He is the self after all. According to the stages of the development of the mind, the self manifests as the master externally. The famous ancient saint Avadhuta said that he had more than 24 masters. The master is one from whom one learns anything. The guru may be sometimes inanimate also, as in the case of Avadhuta. God, guru, and the self are identical. A spiritual minded man thinks that God is all pervading and takes God for his guru. Later, God brings him in contact with a personal guru, and the man recognizes him as all in all. Lastly, the same man is made by the grace of the Master to feel that his self is the reality and nothing else. Thus, he finds that self is the Master. Devotee, does Sri Bhagwan initiate his disciples? Maharshi kept silent. Thereafter, one of the devotees took it upon himself to answer, saying, Maharshi does not see anyone as outside of himself, so there are no disciples for him. His grace is all pervading and he communicates his grace to any deserving individual in silence. Devotee. How does book lore help in self realization? Uh, Only so far as to make spiritually minded devotee. How far does intellect help? Answer: only so far as to make one sink the intellect in the ego and the ego in the self. 4th February 1935. Talk number 24. Mrs. Pivot. Why do you take milk but not eggs? Maharshi. The domesticated cows yield more milk than necessary for their calves and they find it a pleasure to be relieved of the milk. Devotee. But the hen cannot contain the eggs. Maharshi. But there are potential lives in them. Devotee. Thought ceases suddenly, then I rises up as suddenly and continues. It is only in the feeling and not in the intellect. Can it be right? Maharshi, it is certainly right. Thoughts must cease and reason disappear for I to rise up and be felt. Feeling is the prime factor and not reason. Devotee, moreover, it is not the head but in the right side of the chest. Mercy, it ought to be so, because the heart is there. Devotee, when I see outside it disappears, what is to be done? Mercy, it must be held tight. Devotee, if one is active with such remembrance, will the actions be always right? Mercy, they ought to be. However, such a person is not concerned with the right or wrong of his actions. Such a person's actions are God's and therefore they must be right. Devotee, why then the restrictions of food given for such? Mercy, your present experience is due to the influence of the atmosphere you are in. Can you have it outside this atmosphere? The experience is spasmodic until it becomes permanent. Practice is necessary. Restrictions of food are aids for such experience to be repeated. After one gets established in truth, the restrictions drop away naturally. Moreover, food influences the mind and it must be kept pure. The lady told a disciple later, I feel the vibrations from him more intensely and I am able to reach the eye center more readily than before. Talk number 25. On a former occasion, B.V. Narasimha Swami, author of Self Realization, asked, who am I? How is it to be found? Maharshi, ask yourself the question. The body, Annamaya Kosa and its functions are not I. Going deeper, the mind, Manomaya Kosa and its functions are not I. The next step takes on to the question, where from do these thoughts arise? The thoughts are spontaneous, superficial, or analytical. They operate in intellect. Then who is aware of them? The existence of thoughts, their clear conceptions, and their operations become evident to the individual. The analysis leads to the conclusion that the individuality of the person is operative as the perceiver of the existence of thoughts and of their sequence. This individuality is the ego, or as people say, Vijnanamaya kosa. Intellect is only the seat of I and not the I itself. Enquiring further, the question arises, who is this I? Where from does it come? I was not aware in sleep. Simultaneously with its rise, sleep changes to dream or wakefulness. But I am not concerned with the dream just now. Who am I now? In the wakeful state. If I originated from sleep, then I was covered up with ignorance. Such an ignorant I cannot be what the scriptures say or the wise ones affirm. I am beyond even sleep. I must be now and here and what I was all along in sleep and dreams also. Without the qualities of such state, I must therefore be the unqualified substratum undying, underlying these three states. Anand Maya Kosa transcendent. I is, in brief, beyond the five seats. Next, the residuum left over after discarding all that is not self is the self. Sat Chit Ananda. Devotee, how is that self to be known or realized? Maharshi, transcend the present plane of relativity. A separate being, self, appears to know something apart from itself. Non-self, that is the subject, is aware of the object. The seer is drik, the seen is drishya. There must be a unity underlying these two, which arises as ego. This ego is of the nature of chitta, intelligence. Achitta, insentient object, is only negation of chitta. Therefore, the underlying essence is akin to the subject and not the object. Seeking the drik until all drishya disappears, the drik will become subtler and subtler until the absolute drik alone survives. This process is called drishya vilaya, the disappearance of the objective world. Devotee, why should the object's drishya be eliminated? Cannot the truth be realized even keeping the object as it is? Mercy, no. Elimination of drishya means elimination of separate identities of the subject and object. The object is unreal. All drishya, including ego, is the object. Eliminating the unreal, the reality survives. When a rope is mistaken for a snake, it is enough to remove the erroneous perception of the snake for the truth to be revealed. Without such elimination, the truth will not dawn. Devotee, when and how is the disappearance of the object world Drishya Vilya can be effected? Maharshi, it is complete when the relative subject, namely the mind, is eliminated. The mind is the creator of the subject and the object and is the cause of the dualistic idea. Therefore, it is the cause of the wrong notion of limited self and misery consequent on such erroneous idea. Devotee, what is this mind? Maharshi, mind is one form of manifestation of life. A block of wood or a subtle machine is not called mind. The vital force manifests as life activity and also as the conscious phenomenon known as the mind. Devotee, what is the relation between mind and the object? Is the mind contacting something different from it with the world? Maharshi, the world is sensed in the waking and the dream states or is the object of perception and thought, both being mental activities. If there were no such activities as waking and dreaming thought, there would be no perception or inference of world. In sleep, there is no such activity and object and world do not exist for us in sleep. Hence, a reality of the world may be created by the ego by its act of emergence from sleep, and that reality may be swallowed up or disappear by the soul resuming its nature in sleep. The emergence and disappearance of the world are like the spider producing a gossamer web and then withdrawing it. The spider here underlies all the three states waking, dreaming, and sleep. Such a spider in the person is called Atma self. Whereas the same with reference to the world which is considered to issue from the sun is called Brahma, Supreme Spirit. He that is in man is the same as he that is in the sun. Sa vaschayam parsyayascha vyadatte sa ekaha. While self or spirit is unmanifest and inactive, there are no relative doubles, that is, subject and object, drik and drishya. If the inquiry into the ultimate cause of manifestation of mind itself is pushed on, mind will be found to be only the manifestation of the real, which is otherwise called Atma or Brahma. The mind is termed Sukshma Sarira or subtle body, and Jiva is the individual soul. The Jiva is the essence of the growth of individuality. Personality is referred to as Jiva. Thought or mind is said to be its face, or one of the ways in which the jiva manifests itself. The earlier stage or phase of such manifestation being vegetative life. This mind is always seen as being related to or acting on some non-mind or matter, and never by itself. Therefore, mind and matter coexist. Talk number 26. Devotee. How shall we discover the nature of the mind, that is, its ultimate cause, or the noumenon of which it is a manifestation? Maharshi, arranging thoughts in the order of value, the I thought is the all important thought. Personality, idea, or thought is also the root or the stem of all other thoughts, since each idea or thought arises only as someone's thought and is not known to exist independently of the ego. The ego therefore exhibits thought activity. The second and the third persons do not appear except to the first person. Therefore, they arise only after the first person appears. So, all the three persons seem to arise and sink together. Trace then the ultimate cause of I or personality. The I idea arises to an embodied ego and should be related to a body or organism. Has it a location in the body or a spatial relation to any particular spot? As speech, which has its center in the brain or a nativeness in the brain. Similarly, has I got any center in the brain, blood or viscera? Thought life is seen to center around the brain and the spinal cord, which in turn are fed by the blood circulating in them, carrying food and air duly mixed up, which are transformed into nerve matter. Thus, vegetative life, including circulation, respiration, alimentation, etc., or vital force is said to be or reside in the core or essence of the organism. Thus, the mind may be regarded as the manifestation of vital force, which again may be conceived as residing the heart. Devotee. Now, for the art of eliminating the mind and the developing intuition in its stead, are they two distinct stages with a possible neutral ground which is neither mind nor intuition? Or does the absence of mental activity necessarily involve self realization? Maharshi. To the Abhyasi practitioner, there are two distinctive stages. There is a neutral ground of sleep, coma, faint, insanity, etc., in which The mental operations either do not exist or consciousness of self does not prevail. Devotee, taking the first part first, how is the mind to be eliminated or relative consciousness transcended? Maharshi, the mind is by nature restless. Begin liberating it from its restlessness. Give it peace, make it free from distractions. Train it to look inward. Make this a habit. This is done by ignoring the external world and removing the obstacles to peace of mind. Devotee, how is restlessness removed from the mind? Maharshi, external contacts with objects other than itself make the mind restless. Loss of interest in non-self, vairagya, is the first step. Then the habit of introspection and concentration follow. They are characterized by control of external senses, internal faculties, etc., sama, dhamma, etc., ending in samadhi, undistracted mind. Talk 27. Devotee, how are they practiced? Maharshi, an examination of the ephemeral nature of external phenomena leads to vairagya, hence enquiry, vichara, is the first and foremost step to be taken. When vichara continues, automatically it results in a contempt for wealth, fame, ease, pleasure, etc. The I thought becomes clear for inspection. The source of I is the heart, the final goal. If, however, the aspirant is not temperamentally suited to vichara marga, to the introspective analytical method, he must develop bhakti, devotion to an ideal, maybe God, Guru, humanity in general, ethical laws, or even the idea of beauty. When one of these takes possession of the individual, other attachments grow weaker. That is, dispassion, vairagya develops. Attachment for the ideal simultaneously grows and finally holds the feed. Thus, ega- ekagrata, concentration grows simultaneously and imperceptibly with or without visions and direct aids. In the absence of inquiry and devotion, the natural sedative pranayama, breath regulation may be tried. This is known as yoga marga. If life is imperiled, the whole interest centers around the one point, the saving of life. If the breath is held, mind cannot afford to and does not jump at its pets external objects. Thus, there is rest for the mind so long as the breath is held. All attention being turned on breath or its regulation, other interests are lost. Again, passions are attended with regular breathing, whereas calm and happiness are attended with slow and regular breathing. Paroxysm of joy is in fact as painful as one of pain, and both are accompanied by ruffled breaths. Real peace is happiness. Pleasures do not form happiness. The mind improves by practice and becomes finer just as the razor's edge is sharpened by stropping. The mind is then better able to tackle internal or external problems. If an aspirant be unsuited temperamentally for the first two methods and circumstantially on account of age for the third method, he must try the karma marga, doing good deeds, for example, social service. His nobler instincts become more evident and he derives impersonal pleasure. His smaller self is less assertive and has a chance of expanding its good side. The man becomes duly equipped for one of the three aforesaid paths. His intuition may also develop directly by this single method. Devotee, can a line of thought or a series of questions induce self hypnotism? Should it not be reduced to a single point analyzing the unanalyzable, elementary, and vaguely perceived and elusive. I, Maharshi, yes, it is really like gazing into vacancy or a dazzling crystal or light. Devotee, can the mind be fixed to that point? How? Maharshi, if the mind is distracted, ask the question promptly, to whom do these distracting thoughts arise? That takes you back to the I point promptly. Devotee, how long can the mind stay or be kept in the heart? Maharshi, the period extends by practice. Devotee, what happens at the end of the period? Maharshi, the mind is returned to the present normal state. Unity in the heart is replaced by variety of phenomena perceived. This is called the outgoing mind. The heart-going mind is called the resting mind. Devotee, is all this process merely intellectual or does it exhibit feeling predominantly? Maharshi, the latter. How, devotee, how do all thoughts cease when the mind is in the heart? Maharshi, by force of will, with strong faith in the truth of the Master's teaching to that effect. Devotee, what is the good of this process? Maharshi, A. Conquest of the will, development of concentration. B. Conquest of passions, development of dispassion. C. Increased practice of virtue, samtava, equality to all. Devotee, why should one adopt this self-hypnotism by thinking on the unthinkable point? Why not adopt other methods like gazing into light, holding the breath, hearing music, hearing internal sounds, repetition of the sacred syllable pranava or other mantras? Maharshi, light gazing stupefies the mind and produces catalepsy of the will for the time being, yet scores no permanent benefit. Breath control benumbs the will for the time being only. Sound hearing produces similar results unless the mantra is sacred and secures the help of a higher power to purify and raise the thoughts. Talk 28. What is the devotee? What is the interrelation between regulation of thought and regulation of breath? Maharshi, thought, intellectual and respiration, circulation, etc., vegetative activities are both different aspects of the same, the individual life. Both depend upon or metaphorically reside or inhere in life. Personality and other ideas spring from it like the vital activity. If respiration or other vital activity is forcibly repressed, thought also is repressed. If thought is forcibly slowed down and pinned to a point, the vital activity of respiration is slowed down, made even and confined to the lowest level compatible with life. In both cases, the distracting variety of thought is temporarily at an end. The interaction is noticeable in other ways also. Take the will to live. That is thought power that sustains and keeps up life when other vitality is almost exhausted and delays death. In the absence of such will power, death is accelerated. So thought is said to carry life with it in the flesh and from one fleshy body to another. Devotee, are there any aids? Number one, concentration. Number two, casting of distractions. Maharshi, physically, the digestive and other organs are kept free from irritation. Therefore, food is regulated both in quantity and quality. Non-irritants are eaten, avoiding chilies, excess of salt, onions, wine, opium, etc. Avoid constipation, drowsiness, and excitement, and all foods which induce them. Mentally, take interest in one thing and fix the mind on it. Let such interest be all absorbing to the exclusion of everything else. This is dispassion, vairagya, and concentration. God or mantra may be chosen. The mind gains strength to grasp the subtle and merge into it. Devotee. Distractions result from inherited tendencies. Can they be cast off too? Maharshi, yes, many have done so. Believe it. They did so because they believed they could. Vasanas, predisposition, can be obliterated. It is done by concentration on that which is free from vasanas and yet is their core. Devotee, how long is the practice to continue? Maharshi, till success is achieved and until yoga liberation becomes permanent. Success begets success. If one distraction is conquered, the next is conquered, and so on until all are finally conquered. The process is like reducing an enemy's effort by slaying its manpower one by one as each issues out. Devotee, what is the goal of this process? Maharshi, realizing the real. Devotee, what is the nature of the reality? Maharshi, A. Existence without beginning or end, eternal. B. Existence everywhere, endless, infinity. C. Existence underlying all forms, all changes, all forces, all matter, and all spirit. The many change and pass away phenomena, whereas the one always endures numinous. D. The one displacing the triads, that is the knower, the knowledge, and the known. The triads are only appearances in time and space, whereas the reality lies beyond and behind them. They are like a mirage over the reality. They are the result of delusion. Devotee, if I also be an illusion, who then cast off the illusion? Maharshi, the I cast off the illusion of I and yet remains as I. Such is the paradox of self-realization. The realized do not see any contradiction in it. Take the case of bhakti. I approach Ishvara and pray to be absorbed in him. I then surrender myself in faith and by concentration. What remains afterwards? In place of the original I, perfect self surrender leaves a residuum of God in which the I is lost. This is the highest form of devotion, prabhakti, prapatti, surrender, or the height of vairagya. You give up this and that of my possessions. If you give up I and mine, instead all are given up at a stroke. The very seed of possessions is lost. Thus the evil is nipped in the bud or crushed in the germ itself. This passion, vairagya, must be very strong to do this. Eagerness to do is it must be equal to that of a man kept under water trying to rise up to the surface for his life. D. Cannot this trouble and difficulty be lessened with the aid of a master or an Ishta Devta, God chosen for worship? Cannot they give the power to see our self as it is, to change us into themselves, to take us into self-realization? M. East Maharshi. Ishta Devta and Guru are aids, very powerful aids on this path, but an aid to be effective requires your effort also. Your effort is a sine qua non. It is you who should see the sun. Can spectacles and the sun see for you? You yourself have to see your true nature. Not much aid is required for doing it. Devotee. What is the relation between my free will and the overwhelming might of the omnipotent? A. Is omniscience of God consistent with ego's free will? B. Is omnipotence of God consistent with ego's free will? C. Are the natural laws consistent with God's free will? Maharshi, yes, free will is the present appearing to a limited faculty of sight and will. The same ego sees its past activity as falling into a course of law or rules, its own free will being one of the links in that course of law. Omnipotence and omniscience of God are then seen by the ego to have acted through the appearance of his own free will. So he comes to conclusion that the ego must go by appearances. Natural laws are manifestations of God's will and they have been laid down. Devotee. Is the study of science, psychology, physiology, philosophy, etc. helpful for number one, this art of yoga liberation, two, the intuitive grasp of the unity of the real, mercy, very little. Some knowledge is needed for yoga and it may be found in books, but practical application is the thing needed and personal example. Personal touch and personal instructions are the most helpful aids. As for the other, a person may laboriously convince himself of the truth to be intuited. That is its function and nature. But the actual intuition is akin to feeling and requires practice and personal contact. Mere book learning is not of any great use. After realization, all intellectual loads are useless burdens and are thrown overboard as jetsam. Jettisoning the ego is necessary and natural. Devotee, how does dream differ from waking? Maharshi, in dreams one takes on different bodies and they enter this body when one dreams of sense contracts. Devotee, what is the happiness? Is it inhering in the Atma or in the object or in the contact between the subject and the object? But we do not see happiness in our affairs. When does it actually arise? Maharshi, when there is contact of a desirable sort or memory, therefore, thereof, and when there is freedom from undesirable contacts or memory thereof, we say there is happiness. Such happiness is relative and is better called pleasure. But man want absolute and permanent happiness. This does not reside in objects but in the absolute. It is peace free from pain and pleasure. It is a neutral state. Devotee, in what sense is happiness our real nature? Maharshi, perfect bliss is Brahma. Perfect peace is of the self that alone exists and is conscious. The same conclusion is arrived at A. Judged metaphysically. B. Inferred by Bhakti Marga, path of devotion. We pray to God for bliss and receive it by grace. The best hour of bliss must be bliss itself and also infinite. Therefore, Ishvara is the personal God of infinite power and bliss. Brahma is bliss, impersonal and absolute. The finite egos deriving their source from Brahma and then Ishvara are in their spiritual nature bliss only. Biologically, an organism functions because such functions are attended with happiness. It is pleasure that helps our growth, food, exercise, rest, and gregarious qualities. The psychology and metaphysics of pleasure is perhaps this. Our nature is primarily one, entire blissful. Take this as a probable hypothesis. Creation is by the entire Godhead breaking into God and nature, Maya or Prakriti. This Maya is of two parts, para, the sporting essence, and apara, the five elements, mind, intellect, and ego eightfold. Ego's perfection is suddenly broken at a point and a want is felt giving rise to a desire to get something or do something. When that want is curbed by the fulfillment of that desire, the ego is happy and the original perfection is restored. Therefore, happiness may be said to be our natural condition or nature. Pleasure and pain are relative and refer to our finite state, with progress by satisfaction of want. If relative progress is stopped and the soul merges into Brahma, of the nature of perfect peace, that soul ceases to have relative temporary pleasure and enjoys perfect peace, bliss. Hence, self realization is bliss. It is realizing the self as the limitless spiritual eye, jnana drishti, and not clairvoyance. It is the highest self surrender. Sansara, the world cycle is sorrow. Devotee, why then is samsara creation and manifestation as finitized, so full of sorrow and devil? Mercy, God's will. Devotee, why does God will it so? Mercy, it is inscrutable. No motive can be attributed that power. No desire, no end to achieve can be asserted of that one infinite, all wise and all powerful being. God is untouched by activities which take place in His presence. Compare the sun and the world activities. There is no meaning in attributing responsibility and motive to the one before it becomes many. But God's will for the prescribed course of events is a good solution of the free will problem. Vexata quaestio. If the mind is restless on account of a sense of the imperfect and unsatisfactory character of what befalls us or what is committed or omitted by us, then it is wise to drop the sense of responsibility and free will be by regarding ourselves as the ordained instruments of the all wise and all powerful to do and suffer as he pleases. He carries all burdens and gives us peace. Talk 29. On another occasion, the evening was calm and cloudy. It was drizzling occasionally and somewhat cool in consequence. The windows of the ashramam hall were closed, and Maharshi was seated as usual on the sofa. Facing him sat the devotees. Some visitors had come from Kudalore. A sub-judge accompanied by two elderly ladies was among them. The sub-judge began the discussion as to the impermanence of all mundane things by putting the question: has the discrimination between reality and unreality, sat asat vicharana, the efficacy in itself to lead us to the realization of the one imperishable Maharshi, as propounded by all and realized by all true seekers, fixity in the Supreme Spirit, Brahmanistha, alone can make us know and realize it. It being of us and in us, any amount of discrimination, Vivechana can lead us only one step forward by making us renouncers, by goading us to discard the seeming abhasa as transitory and to hold fast to the eternal truth and presence alone. The conversation turned upon the question as to whether Ishvara Prasad, divine grace, is necessary for the attaining of Samrajya, universal dominion, or whether a jiva's honest and strenuous efforts to attain it cannot of themselves lead him to that from whence in no return to life and death. The Maharshi, with an ineffable smile which lit up his holy face and which was all pervasive, shining upon the coterie around him, replied in tones of certainty and with the ring of truth. Divine grace is essential for realization. It leads one to God realization, but such grace is vouchsafed only to him who is a true devotee or a yogi, who has striven hard and ceaselessly on the path towards freedom. Devotee, there are six centers mentioned in the yoga books, but the jiva is said to be reside in the heart. Is it not so? Mercy, yes, the jiva is said to remain in the heart in deep sleep and in the brain in the waking state. The heart need not be taken to be the muscular cavity with four chambers which propels blood. There are indeed passages which support the view. There are others who take it to mean a set of ganglia or nerve centers about the reason. Whichever view is correct does not matter to us. We are not concerned with anything less than ourselves. That we have certainly within us. There could be no doubts or discussions about that. The heart is used in the Vedas and the scriptures to denote the place whence the notion I springs. Does it spring only from the fleshy ball? It springs within us somewhere right in the middle of our being. The I has no location. Everything is the self. There is nothing but that. So the heart must be said to be the entire body of ourselves and of the entire universe conceived as I. But to help the practitioner, Abhyasi, we have to indicate a definite part of the universe or of the body. So this heart is pointed out as the seat of the self. But in truth, we are everywhere. We are all that is, and there is nothing else. Devotee, it is said that divine grace is necessary to attain successful undistracted mind, samadhi. Is that so? Maharshi, we are God, Isvara. Isvara Drishti, that is seeing ourselves as God, is itself divine grace. So we need divine grace to get God's grace. Maharshi smiles and all devotees laugh together. Devotee. There is also divine favor, Isvara Anugraham, as distinct from divine grace, Isvara Prasadam. Is that so? Maharshi, the thought of God is divine favor. He is by nature grace, Prasada or Arul. It is by God's grace that you think of God. Devotee, is it not the Master's grace the result of God's grace? Maharshi, why distinguish between the two? The master is the same as God and not different from him. Devotee, when an endeavor is made to lead the right life and to concentrate thought on the self, there is often a downfall and break. What is to be done, Maharshi? It will come all right in the end. There is the steady impulse of your determination that sets you on your feet again after every downfall and breakdown. Gradually, the obstacles are all overcome and your current becomes stronger. Everything comes right in the end. Steady determination is what